So today I want to go over a couple of graphs for market structures. And the first one I want to look at is, I want to look at the market structure called pure competition. Now what I'm going to do very briefly, firstly, is go over the characteristics, just to describe what the market structure looks like. The first thing is, in this market structure, we have many sellers. And I do mean a lot of sellers are in this market structure. Not only that, in this market structure, they have a standardized product. What that means is, we have a lot of sellers selling the exact same thing. There's no real branding on these particular products in a purely competitive structure. The third thing is, in this market structure, there is freedom of entry and exit, which means new firms can enter this market structure freely. And if you're an existing firm and you want to leave, you can, okay? And then the last characteristic, which is probably the most important one, in this market structure, the firms are called price takers. And what that means is, whatever the market says, a particular firm will have to accept, specifically as it relates to price. So whatever price is set on the market, an individual firm can only charge that price. No higher, no lower. Now to get into the meat of stuff, I want to show you the graphs for a purely competitive structure. Okay? And I'm going to start off firstly with what's called the short run. The short run is when you just open the business. And I want to look at the scenario of profits. So I'm going to look at the short run, specifically profits. So you just open the business and you're actually making money. That's the short run profit scenario we're going to show. And we're going to represent this graphically. I'm going to slow things down a bit because I want you to get the graphs. The first thing when we're trying to represent this graphically is we got to set up the framework. And what we measure here is the quantity. And what we're going to measure along this axis, we're going to measure price, cost, and revenue. So we're going to measure all three of those things: price, cost, and revenue. Now remember when I told you an important characteristic is the firm is a price taker? Well, that's going to define a piece of the demand curve for this firm. It's a horizontal line. This price taker notion means any particular price that the market sets, the firm has to accept it. Okay? That's why the demand curve is a horizontal line. This also happens to be the marginal revenue. So all three of those things will coincide: the demand, the price, and the marginal revenue. Now, if you want to figure out if this firm is making money or losing money, you are going to need some cost information. And to summarize cost, we're going to begin with the average cost curve. And the average cost curve looks like this. It's U-shaped. Now, one thing I want to point out to you, notice when I put in the average cost curve, I put it in below the demand curve. And there's a reason why I did that. Because I'm trying to show the scenario of profits. When we put in the AC curve, it sits below the demand curve. That scenario will show profits. Now, there's one other cost curve we're going to need to analyze all of this. We are going to need the marginal cost curve, which looks like that. And the MC kind of looks like a Nike swish. And what I want to also point out is the MC and the AC have a very specific relationship. The marginal cost will cut the average cost at its minimum point. Now we have the framework to analyze a purely competitive firm. So, where do we start? We need to start at a very important point. We need to ask a very important question. When we're looking at a business, the important question we ask to start this analysis is we ask, where are profits maximized? And I'll answer that for you. Profits are maximized right here. Profits are maximized where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. That is your profit maximizing point, where MC is equal to MR. If you forget, it's where the two M's meet. I like to call it the marriage point. Not that I agree that profits are maximized in marriage, but I like to call it that so I remember. Profits are maximized where MC is equal to MR. Which means when we're looking at our purely competitive scenario, to start the analysis, we need to find that marriage point. We need to find the point where the two M's meet. And that point is right here. MC is equal to MR is right at that point. And from this, you're going to get all the information you need. If this is the point where profits are maximized, then the quantity that's appropriate is right here. Make the profit maximizing quantity. Don't make any more of the good. It doesn't make any sense. Don't make less than the profit maximizing quantity. Then you're leaving money on the table. Now, what price should the purely competitive firm charge? Well, remember I said they're price takers? Which means they have no option but to actually take the price that's given on the market right here. That's your profit maximizing quantity. This is your profit maximizing price. So if we have price and quantity, now you know how much revenue the firm will earn. Now you need to figure out how much will it cost you to produce that Q star. If you want to figure out the cost for Q star, it's going to be right here where I'm putting this X. You see this quantity where it cuts the AC? That is the cost to produce Q star. Now look, the price you fetch on the market is now higher than the cost to produce the good. Guess what? You are making profits. Your cost of production is below the price. In fact, if you want to measure how much profits you make, you see this gap that I'm shading? The gap between price and cost, these are your profits. That's the profit maximizing scenario in the short run for a purely competitive firm.